Okay, picture this. You did it. You finished that marathon, the one you trained months for.
Yeah.
Or maybe you landed that huge client after weeks of pitching. Or, hey, even just finally nailing that complicated recipe.
And it tastes good.
Exactly. It actually tastes good. And you stand back, maybe you're sweating, maybe there's flour on your nose, whatever it is, and you feel that surge, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pride, that deep, satisfying feeling of, I did this. It feels earned. It feels, well, good.
Yeah, that moment, that's authentic self-recognition. You're
Yeah.
acknowledging your effort, your
Yeah.
capability. It's really powerful, actually. A cornerstone of healthy self-regard.
Totally. It's tied to actually doing something. But then, have you ever been around someone where their pride feels, well, different? Well, it's loud, maybe a bit dismissive. They might talk over you or claim all the credit, act like nobody else could possibly measure up.
Right.
And suddenly that positive feeling you had about your accomplishment gets all twisted. It feels uncomfortable, less like self-respect and more like, I don't know, arrogance.
That's exactly where the line gets fuzzy for a lot of people. We tend to use the same word, pride, but the feeling behind it and honestly the impact it has, they're worlds apart.
Right. One seems to build things up, builds you up, maybe.
Exactly. And the other often tears down. It can tear down the people around them. And kind of surprisingly, sometimes even themselves.
Huh. Okay, so understanding that difference, that really crucial distinction between, let's say, healthy self-esteem showing up as authentic pride and maybe unhealthy insecurity that's just dressed up as arrogance, that's exactly what we're getting into today.
Yeah, this is the deep dive. We've looked at a whole mix of stuff for this psychological research, some really insightful personal reflections, even tips from parenting experts.
So our mission today is to unpack these two things. They look similar on the surface sometimes, but they're fundamentally different. We want to explore where they come from, how they actually affect our lives, our relationships.
And crucially, find some practical ways, things you can actually do to nurture that real confidence and kind of steer clear of that arrogance trap.
Okay, let's dig into this duality then. The sources are really clear. There isn't just one kind of pride.
No, definitely not.
They consistently talk about good pride or authentic pride on one side, and then bad pride, maybe hubristic pride, or, what most of us just call arrogance on the other.
Exactly. Think of that authentic pride as being really connected to dignity, genuine self-respect, a sort of grounded sense of your own worth.
Okay.
The sources link it to really positive traits, like being confidently self-assured,
Right.
but also productive, agreeable, conscientious in your work,
Yeah.
emotionally stable even.
So is that feeling of satisfaction you get when you finish something that took real effort?
Yes. Or, being responsible for an outcome that society values, something positive.
Right, so it's rooted in effort and contribution, like being proud you mastered a new skill because you put in the hours practicing.
Or feeling good about your team's success because you really played a part in it. It's specific, it's earned. And the research really strongly ties this type of pride to genuinely high self-esteem, that deep, secure sense of your own value.
Okay, so that's the healthy side. Now let's flip the coin. Unhealthy pride, hubristic pride, arrogance. I mean, even the words sound heavier, right? More negative.
They do? Excessive, overbearing, superiority, conceit, egotism.
Oof.
This isn't about satisfaction in what you did. It's more about projecting an image of being inherently better than everyone else.
Like acting like you know everything.
Yeah, or that you're capable of things you might not actually be. And here's a really powerful insight from the sources. This is often just insecurity. Deep insecurity, trying desperately to look like confidence.
Insecurity in a fancy, boastful costume. That clicks. That really resonates with how it feels when you're around it.
It does, doesn't it? And this type of pride, the arrogant kind, it's often linked to a more fragile self-esteem. Brittle, maybe?
Fragile. How so?
Well, research suggests it might connect to high explicit self-esteem. That's what someone says about themselves, how they consciously present.
Right, I'm great.
Exactly. But surprisingly, low implicit self-esteem. That's how they feel deep down, maybe even unconsciously. It's also linked to traits you see in narcissism, that inflated sense of self-importance and a real lack of empathy.
Wow, that difference between explicit and implicit is fascinating. So they might talk a big game, but underneath.
Underneath, there could be a lot of doubt. The outward show is compensating for the internal feeling. One source had this quote from John C. Maxwell that just nails it.
Oh, what was it?
He said, "Good pride represents our dignity and self-respect. Bad pride is the deadly sin of superiority that reeks of conceit and arrogance."
Wow. That's blunt, but
Yeah.
clear. It frames it not just as personality quirks, but almost like fundamentally different ways of being.
It really is. It's not just semantics. It's about the quality, the source of that feeling inside someone.
Okay, so we have these two pretty distinct types of pride, but why do they feel so different? What's the engine driving them? What's going on psychologically?
Yeah, this is where the research gets really interesting. It points to something called attribution.
Attribution, like who or what gets the credit for something.
Exactly. How someone explains the cause of their success. So, authentic pride tends to bubble up when you attribute your success to causes that are internal, unstable, and crucially, controllable.
Okay, break that down. Internal, unstable, controllable.
Right. Think of the marathon runner again. I finished because I practiced hard. The cause is internal. I practiced. It's unstable, meaning they weren't born a marathon runner. They became one through practice.
Ah, okay.
And most importantly, it's controllable. They chose to put in the effort. It's grounded in reality, in effort, in specific actions they took.
So it's earned through deliberate action. Makes sense.
Precisely. Now compare that to hubristic pride or arrogance. This tends to arise when success gets attributed to internal causes that are seen as stable and uncontrolled.
Stable and uncontrollable.
Like the arrogant person thinking, I succeeded because I'm just inherently brilliant
Well,
or talented or whatever.
I was born this way.
Kind of. The cause is internal. I'm brilliant. But they see it as stable, always there, and uncontrollable, not something they specifically did or earned in that moment. It's based more on an inflated sense of self, not necessarily tied to the actual effort involved, or, frankly, reality.
I didn't need to try. I'm just naturally superior. So the source isn't the work, it's their perceived specialness.
You got it. And that completely changes the feeling and the behavior that follows. Which brings us to the ripple effects, right? How do these different ways of thinking play out in our lives, in our interactions?
Well, the healthy pride sounds like it leads to good things.
Absolutely. The source is connected directly to promoting genuinely positive behaviors. It builds that authentic self-esteem we talked about earlier. It can actually boost empathy.
Really? Empathy? How?
Well, if your self-worth is secure, you're not threatened by other people's successes. You can genuinely feel happy for them. So it fosters positive reactions towards others. People with this healthy pride often have less social anxiety, find it easier to build good relationships. They feel a sense of agency, like I can make things happen, which motivates them.
Okay, that makes sense. So, what about arrogance? What's the ripple effect there?
This is where it gets really interesting and honestly often quite destructive. Like we said, arrogance often hides deep insecurity.
Right, the fancy costume.
Exactly. And because that confidence isn't real, it needs constant external validation. They need other people to see them as great, to tell them they're great.
That sounds exhausting.
It is. And ironically, this constant hunt for external approval can lead to underlying feelings of shame or guilt. It actually increases the risk for things like anxiety and depression.
So it's not just annoying for everyone else, it's actually bad for the person feeling it, too.
Very much so. The sources link arrogance to lower empathy, more hostility, being quick to judge others, dismissing their ideas,
Mm-hmm.
and a really strong tendency to blame everyone else when things go wrong. They find it incredibly hard to admit their own mistakes. It's like a classic defense mechanism, compensating for feeling inadequate rather than being a sign of actual strength.
Let's make this concrete. The sources had some examples, right? Like in the workplace. Arrogance, there must be problematic.
Oh, hugely problematic. Arrogant people, especially if they're in charge, are described as just difficult to deal with. They can create really uncomfortable, even toxic work environments. And critically, the research shows arrogance makes people less willing to seek or even listen to feedback.
Ah, so they shut down important information.
Exactly. They discount it,
Yeah.
which can lead them to just stubbornly stick with failing plans, even when everyone else sees it's not working.
And wasn't there that paradox you mentioned? That people who act superior often aren't?
Yes, that's a key finding. They often demonstrate inferior performance compared to their less arrogant colleagues. Studies even suggest arrogance is negatively related to actual cognitive ability and genuine self-esteem.
So the loud showiness might actually be covering up an internal awareness that they're not that great,
Yeah.
even if they don't admit it.
It's a strong possibility. The outward bluster compensates for that quiet internal sense of limitation.
One source brought up Joe Cassano at AIG.
Right, a classic example, potentially. Described as incredibly arrogant, yelling, belittling people, absolutely no tolerance for different views.
And he got fixated on those credit default swaps that, well, we know how that ended for AIG.
And even afterwards, He reportedly remained unapologetic, blamed everyone else. It shows how arrogance, especially with power, can create this dangerous tunnel vision. You become deaf to warnings, blind to risks. It's almost a recipe for failure.
Wow. And outside of work, arrogance just seems to poison relationships, doesn't it?
Absolutely. One source pointed out that someone stuck in that unhealthy pride wants all the glory. They find it really hard to give credit to others.
They interrupt a lot.
Yeah, cut people off, maybe even see other people just as tools for their own gain. Another source linked being wise in one's own eyes directly to causing arguments and conflict.
You can't really connect with someone like that.
No, because genuine connection needs mutual respect, valuing the other person. Arrogance makes that incredibly difficult because the focus is always inward, on the self. It just creates distance.
And these patterns can start young, apparently.
The sources looking at childhood described kids who are constantly showing off, boasting, arguing even when they're wrong, correcting everyone dismissively.
Sounds tiring for parents.
Definitely. Struggling with authority, making excuses for everything, feeling entitled, needing to be first and best all the time.
There's that little detail about saying thank you.
Right. A small but telling sign. If your focus is so intensely on yourself, it's hard to genuinely acknowledge a gift or kindness from someone else. It just doesn't fit this self-centered narrative. These behaviors really mirror that adult pattern of needing validation and being self-absorbed.
Okay, so we've got the two types, where they come from, and the pretty negative impact arrogance can have. So the big question, how do we steer towards that healthy, authentic confidence and, avoid the arrogance trap?
Yeah.
The sources had some actual practical steps, right? Things you can actually do.
Yes, definitely. These aren't just abstract ideas. There are actionable strategies you can use to cultivate genuine confidence and maybe dial back any arrogant tendencies.
First one seems basic but crucial. Watch your communication.
Yeah, be really aware of your words, but also your tone. Avoid those condescending remarks that automatically put you above someone else.
Okay.
But interestingly, also avoid excessive self-deprecation. Putting yourself down too much isn't humility. It can be its own way of fishing for validation.
Oh, good point.
Instead, practice active listening, like really hearing what someone's saying, not just waiting for your turn to talk or planning your comeback. And try using gentle, kind tones, even if you disagree.
So it's about the respect in the communication, not just the words.
Exactly. And another huge step is knowing yourself. And that includes your flaws.
Which seems like the total opposite of arrogance, right? Trying to hide any imperfection.
It is. Real confidence isn't about pretending to be perfect. It's about knowing yourself, warts and all, and being okay with that. The sources really stress willingly acknowledging your weaknesses without getting defensive or shamed.
Owning mistakes. That's hard.
It's incredibly hard, but owning your mistakes without making excuses, that's a massive confidence builder. It takes real courage. And focus not just on listing your wins, but on reflecting on your failures too, and what you actually learn from them.
Yeah, that shifts the focus from I'm flawless to I can learn and grow.
And speaking of shifting focus, try focusing outward more, not just inward. Make a real effort to celebrate other people's successes. Genuinely.
Life isn't zero-sum.
Exactly. Someone else winning doesn't mean you lose. Giving credit where it's due. That's a sign of confidence, not a threat to it.
That must feel like a huge shift for someone caught in arrogance where everything feels like a competition.
It is. And probably the single most recommended antidote for arrogance across all the sources. Embracing humility.
Ah, humility. People misunderstand that one all the time, don't they? Thinking it means putting yourself down.
That's such a crucial point. Humility isn't thinking less of yourself, it's thinking of yourself less. It's about seeing yourself accurately, clearly, and putting yourself in the right perspective within the bigger picture.
So being open to other people's ideas.
Yes, being genuinely open to their opinions, their ways of doing things. Recognizing your view isn't the only one. Accepting there's always more to learn from others. It's about letting go of needing to be the judge and jury of everything and everyone.
And the sources said this actually makes people see you better, like more trustworthy, competent.
Yeah, it allows others to see your genuine competence and confidence in a positive way. It invites connection and respect instead of trying to demand it through force or showing off.
Okay. Any other practical tips?
Here's a fun one. Don't take yourself so seriously.
Oh, I like that one. Feels liberating.
It really is. Give yourself permission to be silly sometimes. Laugh at yourself, even in front of other people. One source shared this great line someone told them, "Get down from that cross, we need the wood."
Ha! That's brilliant.
It's a stark, funny reminder that, in the grand scheme, none of us are that central to the universe. We're just another cog in the wheel. It helps you become right-sized, not puffed up, not diminished either.
Takes the pressure off needing to be perfect all the time.
Totally. And one last big one. Cultivate a learning orientation. Be genuinely open to feedback, even when it's critical.
See mistakes as learning opportunities.
Exactly. Not as proof you're inadequate, but as valuable data. This directly fights that arrogant tendency to blame everyone else. It lets you adapt and improve instead of just getting stuck defending a bad position.
It sounds like all these things, communication, self-awareness, outward focus, humility, humor, learning, they all weave together. They build that solid, quiet, internal strength instead of the loud, fragile, external show.
They really do. And if we just zoom out for a second, it's interesting how this pride duality shows up on broader levels, too. Philosophically, pride's been debated forever. Is it a virtue or a vice?
Right.
There's the idea that pride is maybe more justified when it's about things you're responsible for, like your character or effort, versus accidental things like wealth or status.
And that distinction between absolute pride, like basic human dignity, which can foster cooperation.
Versus relative pride, feeling superior, which tends to just breed competition.
Yeah. Society plays a role too, right? What we're told to be proud of.
Absolutely. Society's shoulds definitely shape things. And it's so important to remember that for some people, systemic barriers make achieving those traditional goals much harder. Their journey to finding authentic pride might look really different. But ultimately, that authentic pride contributes to self-worth, recognizing your positive impact. That's vital for individual well-being and for society, too. Think about movements like LGBTQ plus pride. The huge positive impact on self-esteem, dignity, inclusion, just by affirming identity and worth.
Okay, so wrapping this up, the core difference seems to be healthy pride comes from real accomplishment, real effort. It builds genuine self-worth, helps your connections.
While unhealthy arrogance, that's often that noisy mask for insecurity. It needs constant validation from outside, and it ends up damaging relationships and just making you less effective.
And figuring out which is which in ourselves and others tonight. It's not a one-off thing.
No, it's an ongoing practice.
Yeah.
Self-awareness, reflection, making conscious choices about how we show up in the world.
So the key takeaway feels like real confidence doesn't need to put others down. It doesn't need to constantly broadcast its wins.
Exactly. It's a quiet strength, built on genuine effort, self-awareness, and importantly, balanced with humility.
Which leaves us with a final thought for you, the listener.
Yeah, maybe reflect on this. Is there an area in your life, big or small, where you might be mistaking arrogance for confidence? Maybe driven by that insecurity, that need to project superiority.
Or maybe the opposite. Are you dimming your own light, afraid that celebrating something you genuinely achieved might come across as arrogant?
What's just one small thing you could do this week? Maybe lean into authentic pride for something you really earned. Or perhaps practice a bit more humility, truly listen, truly value someone else's perspective. Something to think about.